live button, so let's wait for the stream to fire up all across the fruited plain of the internet. Before we go ahead and get started, we got to make sure the tubes are tubing, not Jeffrey tubing, internet tubing. And it looks like they are. That's tremendous news. It means we can go ahead and get started. So let's do it, shall we? Hello, my friends, and welcome back to yet another episode of Watching the Watchers Live, the show that spotlights misconduct involving police, prosecutors, and politicians. My name is Robert Gouveia. I am a criminal defense attorney, and today we are talking about the White House impeachment inquiry. And boy, they're a little bit rattled on this thing, and I wasn't really expecting that because previously we talked, does this thing really have a lot of teeth to it? Is this going to have any consequence? The White House is a little bit panicked about it, so we're going to go through this today. Now, to be fair, both sides are catching it. Kev McCarthy is also catching a little bit of grief from the Republicans because people are saying, is this going to do anything at all, or is this just more smoke and mirrors? We talked a lot about yesterday about the fact that there was an attempt to do an impeachment, but there are a couple ways you can do that. One is through the impeachment inquiry process where the Speaker of the House just declares it. The other is by a vote. We did not have a vote. And so McCarthy got asked a bunch of questions about that today. Do you want to listen to that a bit before we turn over to the White House and see what Karine had to say? Because, well, she doesn't really say much about it, but she did say, I'm not going to talk about it. She pivoted to Bidenomics. She thinks that this is going to be a winning strategy for them, that this is going to be successful in this next election. She does get a little bit irritated about it because somebody said, well, is there evidence? And she said, it's a fact that there is no evidence, which of course we'll go through today. And then she just made a beeline for the door. She pulled a Joe Biden move and just got on out of there. She's like, I got to go. Don't ask me any more questions on the way out the door. Now, there's a question about this. Is the impeachment going to actually help Joe Biden? Maybe it will. We've seen that before with Clinton, with Trump and others. And so maybe it does lead to some bump in the polls for Joe, which I actually think is a great thing because we definitely want to run against him, not anybody else who they might replace him with. So we'll talk about that. And then we'll leave it up to Jim Jordan to do some cleanup. And he kind of is hinting here that this is probably just the first step, that if we really need to get there, we can always go to a full impeachment inquiry with a full vote of the House. And so we'll go through all of that and more in our very first segment. Then I do want to spend some time absolutely obliterating and smashinating the delusional Democrats who are adhering to this new talking point that there is not a shred of evidence, not a shred, not an iota, not a scintilla, not even a blip of evidence against Joe Biden. And we're going to go through this in detail. Tom S. Elliott over on Twitter put together a nice supercut on this, so we'll jip that, listen to that one. But then I want to articulate what I see as the two tracks of this impeachment inquiry. And of course, there may be more. I think there will be a lot more. But these are the two general concepts that I want to tease out because you're going to understand that the Democrats are spending most of their time in this bucket. They're actually living in this reality where they're narrowly defining the argument. They're saying that Joe Biden never got a direct deposit, a Venmo transaction, or a big giant check that you see on the game shows. He never got any of those things, so therefore there's no evidence. But we've got 20 examples of evidence against Joe Biden. We're going to go through that. And I want to articulate the different types of evidence so that the Democrats, when they use this talking point that there's no evidence, they can understand how this works actually legally speaking. We'll talk about direct evidence. We'll talk about circumstantial evidence. And then we'll actually go through 20 or so different examples of what that evidence looks like, all in the second segment. And so that should be fun. And then lastly, you may have heard the headline on this, but we'll take a look at the actual letter. Biden White House lawyers are now sending letters, memos to the media, basically ordering them to go out there and defend Joe Biden and stop the Republicans from attacking his good name. And so we're going to go through this letter. It came from this guy, Ian Sams. We've heard from him before. And he's actually out on TV. He's saying, Joe Biden loves his son. He's a real nice guy. They talk about the weather and things like that. And so leave Joe alone. We'll actually take a look at the letter that went out to a bunch of people in the media. I'm sure they're going to take it, lap it up, probably read it 35 times, share it with their wives, put it under their pillows tonight, and start enacting the plan tomorrow. But the question is, why is the White House leveraging the media to defend their corrupt candidate? Feels like sort of like a Banana Republic stuff. Schiff, one of the biggest liars in America, and he's been censured, by the way. Like 3 people have ever been censured. This loser is one of them. He was out lying to the American people on the media, hanging out with Wolf Blitzer. We'll see what he had to say about this. And then Matt Gaetz is going to come out and say, look, we've got enough evidence on this thing that even a law school student could figure it out. Shout out to our law school students who are out there. And so we'll wrap it up with Matt Gaetz at the end of the 3rd segment. And so, my friends, as you can see, we've got a lot to get to today. I'm so excited you are here and with us. We love attending to some serious business. This morning, we had some fun talking about what's going on in New Mexico. And the Attorney General out in New Mexico is apparently refusing to defend the New Mexico gun ban. And so we read through the letter. He sent a letter over to her. She's being sued out the wazoo. And I saw that just before the show started, that a federal court has issued, I think, an injunction prohibiting her from stopping, from actually putting that gun ban into effect. So she really kind of stepped in it over there in New Mexico. And we talked a lot about that this morning. We love our members. If you're a member, we do member-only streams in the morning. We do Saturday streams. We'd love to have you at watchingthewatchers.locals.com. It's a great place to meet other people, to stay plugged in, to get extra content, to get access to our members-only Telegram group where the chat never ends, to get updates every morning when we go live. It's a lot of fun. We love our members. Watchingthewatchers.locals.com. We've got some amazing YouTube members as well. YouTube members, all the same stuff, except join us for the after party. If you're on YouTube, get the Telegram link from the community tab section and join us for the after party. That's the only difference. We also have our new website, robertgovea.com. You can click on over here. If you miss anything on the show, just click over to reports right here, and you can read all of the latest. Okay, these are summaries of the videos, and you can get into what's happening. Just stay plugged in. If you can't catch everything, check it out, robertgovea.com, and you can sign up for our newsletter every day after the show. You can just click this sign up here, first name, last name, first name and email, and boom, you'll get the newsletter. You'll get access to the mind map and all the fun stuff, robertgovea.com. We also want to shout out our friends at Field of Greens. Field of Greens, indeed, is where we can be healthy. And one thing we'd like to do is go over there because we all want to lose those leftover pandemic pounds, don't we? But how sick are you of all the ads for the weight loss pills and the fad diets? You know, we've all been there. We've all done that. And we know they don't work. But eating healthy, especially 5 healthy servings of fruits and vegetables, man, that is going to solve some issues. You do that and the weight would probably just fall right off. But man, vegetables, I know, not a fan. They go bad. And fruit, who's got time to prepare that every day? Strawberries, they're like 3 days and they're bad. You know, it's a pain. Instead, let's talk about Field of Greens. So when you miss your strawberries, you don't have to worry about it. You can just get your science-backed formula of specific fruits and vegetables that you're not going to find in any other product. We know that proper nutrition reboots your metabolism so you burn calories faster and lose weight a healthier way. And Field of Greens is the only brand backed by a better health promise. Yes, you're going to look healthier and feel healthier fast, but the greater proof is going to come at your next checkup when you walk into your doctor's office and your doctor takes one look at you and he says, whoa, you are looking good. Whatever you're doing, keep it up. We're going to know that the story is about fieldofgreens.com, and you can save 15% off on your first order by going to fieldofgreens.com and using code Robert when you check out. Great place to go. Remember, the vegetables want to be eaten. You're going to be bursting with green energy, the good kind, and it's a lot of fun to be energized and nutrified, courtesy of fieldofgreens.com. Code Robert. All right. Now, let's get into business, my friend. The White House feels a little bit rattled after the impeachment inquiry news broke. We know that House Speaker Kevin McCarthy says that they're about to look into the Biden crime family, and they're going to look hard, he says. And we have reaction from the White House saying, look, this is ridiculous, okay? There's no evidence at all that Joe Biden was involved in anything. And Karine is saying, it's a fact. Don't you even question us about Joe's involvement. But we've got other questions about this. Is this going to actually help Joe Biden? Maybe that's a good thing. Maybe because we want Joe Biden to be the next candidate. And we also have reaction from Jim Jordan explaining exactly what his take is. Since he's on the Judiciary Committee, he's going to be catching the football from Kevin McCarthy and taking it and running it down the field. But first, Kevin McCarthy had to come out and explain himself a little bit. We had a very brief announcement from him. It was about 4 minutes yesterday. we didn't have a lot of time for follow-up questions. He pulled a Joe Biden, turned around, made a beeline for the door. We didn't hear anything. But now he came out and we're asking some questions of him because we also have some questions here. Not only is the White House a little bit concerned about this, but some people on the right are asking themselves, is this going to do anything? Is this just smoke and mirrors? Is this just like another version of a letter? And we've read many letters here. And don't get me wrong, I love reading the letters, but we also like some consequence from the letters at some point in time. You know, it's not just reading letters. I mean, we want some consequence of the letters. It's what the letters bring. So the point is, in this inquiry, because this is just Kevin McCarthy who made this announcement, and he's mirroring Nancy Pelosi, as he's going to explain here, is that going to give him any teeth? Or does he need to get the full vote of the full House in order for the subpoenas and the inquiry power to have any consequence? So let's listen in and see what he says about this. He was on C-SPAN explaining the media the news.
Just very quickly, how do you justify this impeachment inquiry without holding a full House vote?
Nancy Pelosi changed the rules and the president, but let's walk through why. And let's walk through what an impeachment inquiry is, okay? An impeachment inquiry is simply empowering the House to a greater level to get the documents they need to answer a question. So what it is how do you answer a question? Now, first of all, what is the question? Well, let's walk through what we know today and why it transferred just in the last little bit. We do know that an FBI informant has alleged to the FBI a number of years ago that the vice president, that there was a bribe and that you wouldn't find the money because of shell companies. We do know now the Biden family created 20 shell companies. We do know now that $20 million went to them. We do know now what President Biden told the American public was not true, that he never talked to his son about his business dealings.
Multiple times.
We do know now, based upon the testimony by Hunter Biden's business partner, that they were selling a brand. That the vice president would get on phone calls, that Hunter Biden went on 12 trips, international trips, with then vice president. We do know that he went to meetings, and when he went to these dinners, the son got a new Porsche. He got more than $3 million moved and transferred. We do know now that when the shell companies got paid, 9 members of the family got paid. We do know now that the government, while it was investigating Hunter Biden, was treated differently, the Biden family. That they let the statute of limitations run out. And we do know from IRS workers who came forth that's not how the IRS works. So you have all these questions, and to be able to get the answers to those questions, you're going to have to subpoena certain documents. All that impeachment inquiry does is provide Congress the opportunity that if someone fights, we also learned. Let me finish the answer. The other thing we learned just in the last couple of weeks, that Vice President used a pseudonym for emails.
Fake names.
That 5,400 of those are in the archives.
At PCI.gov.
That President Obama gets to determine whether the House is able to look at those. We do know from seeing one of the emails that the staffer sends an email to Vice President Biden and to Hunter Biden and referring to his upcoming conversation with the president of Ukraine. At this time, Hunter Biden is on the board of Burisma, a Ukrainian energy company that Hunter Biden was selling the brand to while he was put on, who Hunter Biden acknowledged he had no experience in energy and why he was only put on there because he was Joe Biden's son. We do know President Biden, in his own words, told the American public that he withheld $1 billion of taxpayer money to Ukraine until they fired the prosecutor. And Hunter Biden's business partner then has now informed us in the last weeks that there was a lot of pressure on them to do something about the prosecutor. We have also learned that a White House staffer to the vice president sent to Hunter Biden's business partner that the vice president has okayed the talking points for Burisma.
So all
of these are questions. So I ask you as reporter.
It's pretty good. I mean, he just listed like 10 things off the top of his head right there. I don't know if he's got that written down or whatever, but that's like 3 minutes of him just rattling off evidence of Joe Biden's corruption. And the media is like But I didn't hear anything, though. They're just deluded. They have no idea what he just said to them.
Reporters, as gatherers of information. Wouldn't you want to know the answers to these questions?
And if you want to, opinion in 2020 that basically said an inquiry is invalid unless you have the House authorized.
You also have a court case that going forward with Nadler, when he went forward when they did not have a vote, when they wanted documents, and the judge said, why do you need these documents? He said, we've got an impeachment inquiry. He said, okay, you could have it. So you've got a court case there. Look.
But you told Breitbart 12 days ago that you have a vote, so what changed?
You know what's interesting?
All right, so they're asking him questions about the prior impeachment, okay? And the prior impeachment of Donald Trump, when Nancy Pelosi did this thing, when Nancy Pelosi came out and just announced an impeachment inquiry, he pounded the table on it. You can't do this. It's totally invalid, right? This is ridiculous. And so he is appearing to be a little bit contradictory here, right? He's like, well, you were mad when Pelosi did this. Pelosi kind of cracked the shell, right? And he said, you can't possibly do this. And she did it anyways. And they did the subpoena thing. And then there's court cases. And this is the case he's talking about. But now that he is doing exactly what Nancy Pelosi did, right? They're all calling him illegitimate. And this has no force because you said it has no force. But he's just turning around and saying, I'm just doing what Nancy Pelosi did, all right? And she made a lot of headway with her own version of an impeachment inquiry.
To me, you were a reporter for CNN, correct?
Yes.
I just laid out to you a lot of allegations.
Yeah, you did.
Based upon the American
I'm
public.
just about your words. Why did you change your words?
Okay, well, let me answer your question, because I answered it every single day, and you could answer me every single day. Nancy Pelosi changed the president of this House.
But that was
This
before
doesn't
12 days
preclude
ago.
from a... Nancy Pelosi changed the president of this House on September 24th. It was withheld and good enough for every single Democrat here. It was good enough for the judge. Why would it have to be different today? What we've learned in the last couple of weeks, wouldn't you want to know the answer to? Your whole job is reporting. You now have an accusation that the...
Real quick on this, right? He's right about that. Their job is to investigate this stuff. They're more mad at McCarthy. They're asking McCarthy about these allegations rather than asking about the allegations. It's like, what kind of world are you people living in? And just the tone. All of these reporters are just barking at him all the time. You don't get that same type of interface with Democrat politicians, right? They bring out Kirby, they bring out Karine. They ask him pretty nice, polite questions, but it's not this onslaught, like attack vector, for just doing the same thing that Pelosi did. It's lunacy.
President took a bribe. You do know from your own reporting, from your own station, that they were selling a brand. You do know from your own reporting from CNN that the president went to and did conference calls, that the president went to lunches and dinners, just the dinners, and Hunter got a new Porsche. He got 3
But
points.
that's for the vote.
But that's my question to you. Why don't you ask the other questions? Why don't you
I
want
do
to
ask, but I'm curious.
you
I'm curious
never
why you changed your position.
I never changed my position. You
told
don't. You
Breitbart
don't.
12 days ago.
You know what's
that you
interesting to
were
me?
the vote.
So you don't care about any of the answers. You were very interested in the whole process. Yes, I answered your question.
Speaker McCarthy, on the timeline, how quickly are you looking for this impeachment inquiry to move? And the White House says that thousands of pages of financial records have already been turned over. So what more do Republicans need to prove and provide hard evidence of any possible wrongdoing?
You used any possible wrongdoing. If you had an FBI informant alleged someone was bribed and they used shell companies, how do you prove that? You'd have to get the documents. If you have a staffer that worked in the White House saying the president approved Burisma talking points, you have facts there. We don't have any of the credit card statements from all the credit cards from this shell companies. We don't have the president's bank statements. We don't have Hunter Biden's bank statements. Providing information like that would answer the question. All we're looking at in an impeachment inquiry is answering the questions.
And then the timetable, how quickly are you looking for this impeachment?
Well, I would think the White House would want to answer these questions rather quickly. If someone was accused of a bribe, if someone was accused what they said, I don't know if CNN asked the president the question, why did he tell the American public he's never talked to the Hunter Biden? When now we know that he had about the business partner.
Never talked
Why
to
don't
the wall.
CNN ask the president when he sat down for that dinner with Hunter Biden and the oligarch's wife from Russia? Did he know his son was selling the brand? Did he know the family was going to have a $3.5 million payment the next day? Did he know when he had that dinner with his son who was selling the brand that he was going to get a Porsche? Did he know when his son was sitting on the Burisma board and the staff sent an email, why did you use a different name than your normal name when you were going to talk about work with the president of Ukraine? Would CNN ask the president when he withheld $1 billion to get rid of the prosecutor? Would CNN care about if that was using that to do something for his son, selling a brand using American tax dollars when he knows that he was getting a lot of pressure because he had the talking points? I don't know if CNN would care about that question. So to me, what we would do is as soon as we can get the info, we will.
So shout out to Kev for going out there and talking to the media about that. And they asked questions and he gave them the 10 talking point bullet points. Boom, 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 boom. And still they don't get it. And, you know, I joke here, like they're waiting for literally a Venmo transaction or they want a bank deposit from Joe Biden or from Hunter Biden to Joe Biden or a big check that you see on The Price is Right or whatever. But just think about this. I mean, if the Democratic standard was the same standard that we applied to Trump, you'd say the same thing about Trump. You'd say, well, nobody ever saw Trump take a box of documents out of the White House and put them into Mar-a-Lago, right? He never took a box specifically. So all of it is other people who did things. And there's just rumors about what Trump said and all of it. And none of it's evidence, none of it's circumstantial evidence or direct evidence at all, right? If that was the same standard, then Trump would be exonerated all over the place. And so my point here is that they just pick and choose the standards that they want to follow. If it's Trump's prosecution, then everything is innuendo. Everything is direct evidence. Everything is circumstantial evidence. And even so much as a sniff from Trump's office is evidence that he colluded with Putin. And now, right, if it's Biden's case, nothing is close enough. You have to see direct evidence through and through. So it's just a double standard that exists. And Kev is out here showing us that there are a lot of major connections and the impeachment inquiry is the first step to it. But when we turn over to the White House, we've got Karine. So they brought her out to say, all right, Karine, let's get some answers on this from you. What do you guys say about this now that you're about to be impeached? And let's correct this volume so we don't blow out any eardrums and see what Karine has to say from the White House.
You know, that's what we believe.
So if you don't view it as legitimate, does that mean that the White House doesn't believe it needs to comply with requests that come as a result of this inquiry?
So look, I'm going to let the counsel's office, my colleagues there, speak to this directly as to what, when it comes to cooperating. I'm going to let them speak to that. But I've been very clear. We believe this is we're certainly not going to speculate on any baseless accusations, right? As we have seen from the Republicans in the House. And so, you know, again, they could not even support their own votes. They couldn't. Speaker McCarthy could not even get support for this vote. And so I'm going to just leave it there.
Okay. Karine, on impeachment, you just mentioned House Republicans' baseless claims. How confident are you that there will be no evidence that incriminates President Biden and Hunter's business dealings as this goes forward?
So let me just give a little bit of a lay down here because I think it's important.
Lay it
Any
down.
Specifics to the inquiry, certainly I want to say this at the top, as I said to Darlene, I'm going to refer you to my colleagues at the counsel's office. But I also want to be clear about a couple of things. You know, I just talked about Bidenomics. I just talked about what the president's going to do tomorrow, really deliver a major speech, something that the American people want to hear about. What are we doing to improve their lives, work on the economy? And these are real issues, real priorities for Americans.
The question was about the impeachment.
And like I said, like lowering costs. But what you see Republicans in Congress, right, they have spent all year investigating the president. That's what they've spent all year doing. And have turned up with no evidence, none, that he did anything wrong. I mean, that is what we've heard over and over again from their almost year-long investigation. And that's because the president didn't do anything wrong.
Okay, so just to be clear, this is what they're going to do, right? We can show them all the evidence in the world. They're not going to care. They are anti-evidence, right? They used to call a bunch of people anti-science until their science kind of had some problems with being scientific. And so they called everybody anti-science, but they are anti-evidence now because they just can't see any evidence. There's a ton of it in front of their faces, but they just do whatever they want. And this is kind of how they exist in general. You've got Mayorkas who says, no, the border's great. Border's incredible. What are you talking about? It's working perfectly well. You have them saying, no, inflation's incredible. What are you talking about? Inflation's perfect. It's going down every month. It's not. They say wages are rising. Real wages are rising. It's not. They're all delusional. They say we can just ban guns because we need to. And they're not going to be able to do that. So it's the same story here. They're just going to wake up every morning and probably tell themselves in the mirror, there's no Biden evidence. There's no Biden evidence. There's no Biden evidence. Karine, you're a great person. You're doing a great job. There's no Biden evidence. There's no Biden evidence.
Even House Republicans have said the evidence does not exist. The House Republicans have said that. To my friend in the back who just yelled at, which is incredibly inappropriate.
Shout out to that guy. I think she's talking about Ken Buck. One House Republican or two House Republicans. There's a huge swath of other House Republicans who say there's mounds of evidence.
House Republicans have said that it doesn't exist. Their own investigation have actually debunked their ridiculous attacks.
Really?
And the only reason Speaker McCarthy is doing this political stunt, and we have seen it, you all have reported, is because Majority Taylor Greene has said she threatened to shut down the government. Can you imagine shutting down the government over a political stunt? And we're talking about vital programs that American families need.
Let's do it.
And she said that because she wanted him to actually do this. And if he didn't, she would shut down the government. And you have Matt Gaetz as well, threatened to oust him as Speaker if he didn't do it. So he didn't even put up for a vote, as you all know. Because
sounds good, Karine. Yeah, it sounds good. Shut down the government and throw Kevin McCarthy out. Yeah, it sounds good. I mean, that's called politics. So you can see here, they're not going to be answering much. They're just going to say there is no evidence. Now, this is just a wild ride that we've been on because we've been following all these permutations and iterations and evolutions of their narrative here for quite some time now. It started out Biden never talked to his son about his business dealings, or he never was involved in it. He never talked to him, then he wasn't involved. And then he never talked to his son, but then he never talked to his son about the business dealings. And then, okay, maybe he did talk to him about the business dealings, but he never was involved in them. Then, okay, maybe he did have dinner with them and phone calls and speakerphones, but he never was paid by them. And then, okay, right. The list just goes on and on and on. And so now they've gone all the way back, I think, full circle. And they're just saying it's just no evidence. There's just no evidence. Just say that over and over and over again. And when this person in the media asks her a question about this, man, Karine gets really fired up about it. Here.
You've suggested that there's no evidence to back up the Republicans'
which is true.
Here.
It's true. I'm not suggesting it. That's actually a fact.
Oh, man. I sent some attitude right there. Did you hear that attitude? Look at that head bob. She's like really like offended by this. It is a fact. Look.
You've suggested that there's no evidence to back up the Republicans'
which is true.
Here.
It's true. I'm not suggesting it. That's actually a fact.
Oh, man. She is just doing it's a fact, Jack, is what she's saying now. And that's an interesting little answer from the White House press secretary. And then when the media asks her one final question, she just makes a beeline and runs out of there.
And with that, folks,
Can you explain why the president interacted with so many of his son's foreign business associates? More than half of voters told CNN they believe the president was involved and he lied. You can't have a response to that, Karine?
Bye. And look at all these other journos looking back at this guy yelling at her from the background. She turns her head. She turns her head over here. She turns her head 1, 2, 3, all turning her head at the guy saying, hey, can you please talk about your corrupt boss? We've got some questions about it. So White House a little bit nervous about it. And you can see Karine, sometimes she can keep her composure a little bit better than that. But today she had some little attitude in those responses. But the big question, is this going to help or hurt Joe Biden? Hard to say. I think that in some instances it will hurt him. In some instances it will help him. What is the net effect of it? Don't know. But the Democrats are saying this might actually help Joe. And some part of me thinks that this is actually better for the right. I have this fear, maybe it is unjustified, that they're going to get rid of Joe. I just think that they're going to try to swap him out. They're going to do the Indiana Jones with the golden skull. They're just going to take Sleepy Joe out and swap in Michelle Obama, or swap in Newsom or somebody else. Hillary was at the White House yesterday, for crying out loud. So I get nervous about that. So if Joe Biden falls too quickly, too hard, maybe there's too much time to swap him out and throw somebody else back in. But they're saying this might actually help bolster Joe Biden, which means that people will rally around him and support him, which might be actually a good thing for the Republicans, because that means that Joe Biden will be the nominee if he looks stronger than he really is. Here is what this statement sounds like from NBC News.
So, Monica, we've reported from both ends of Pennsylvania Avenue how Democrats plan to go on the offensive with this looming impeachment threat. What is the White House doing so far?
Well, they really are saying, hey, we prepared for this. We thought this was likely going to happen. Since earlier this year, they've been getting this war room together that in August really ramped up because they were, again, expecting this as a real possibility. But they're pointing out a lot of these issues that the two of you who do this day in and day out have just spent a lot of time talking about, which is the fact that Speaker McCarthy announced this inquiry without a vote. They're going to try to make a big deal of what they are calling this hypocrisy, given his comments back in 2019 when then Speaker Pelosi did the same thing. And so I think you can expect them to also just continue to have this rapid response effort that's basically this mega list of every Republican who in the last couple of weeks expressed a little bit of doubt and skepticism, some of them privately, but a lot of them now more publicly, saying, I don't know that the evidence is there. I'm not sure where this could go. I'm not sure this is the best use of time. So expect the White House to be consistently pointing that out. And then, of course, they have these lawyers, they have aides and everybody going through this and mounting this response. But overall, they're using a roadmap from 1998 when then President Bill Clinton was impeached. And they like to point out that presidents who were impeached in the last couple of decades actually sometimes saw their poll numbers go up. So they're by no means saying that this is what they would definitely like to see happen, but they're pointing out that there might be a slight political upside here potentially. And they're also underscoring that they would like to see the evidence that these Republicans are talking about, because so far it's not clear that there has been any specifically, and that they would even point to the IRS whistleblower and those under oath who said they couldn't provide any linkage between what Hunter Biden was doing in his business dealings and directly tying that to the president, who was then Vice President Joe Biden. So all of those questions the White House is going to continue to raise. And again, they have their own sort of arm of the White House counsel's office doing this on the daily. You're not going to see the president want to engage on this very much. He's going to try to dismiss it as they try to focus on some of the other agenda items here, Ryan.
She's right about it. I think that they are going to go hard at this. We've got a whole nother segment queued up on this, but Ian Sams, the White House counsel, they are being very proactive. They've already sent out media requests to start attacking the Republicans and so on, and they'll try to leverage this to their advantage. Now, is the advantage enough to overcome the Biden deficit? I mean, I really think that, especially by the time next year comes around, with the trajectory that a lot of the numbers are in the economy, that Biden's numbers may continue to go down so quickly that he'll be justified to boot him out. If the impeachment props him back up, is it enough to close the deficit to put him over the top of Trump? Like, is the country going to say, we're okay with a wrecked economy, a broken border, and insane laws from this country, from this president, but we're still going to vote for him because he's being impeached? I don't think that's going to be the case. So that is what they say. We'll see how it plays out. Here's Jim Jordan in the aftermath. Now, Jim Jordan is on the Judiciary Committee, and he has been tasked with dealing with this. So Kevin McCarthy made the inquiry announcement and then is going to hand it off to three different committees: the Oversight Committee, Judiciary Committee, and the Ways and Means Committee. This is Chairman Jordan, who's on Judiciary, reacting.
I think if it comes to a vote, if that's what the Speaker wants, I think we can get the votes, but you don't need that to move forward. There's all kinds of evidence that warrants moving to this phase of our constitutional duty to do oversight of the executive branch. But I think there are four key facts, four central facts that are at the heart of this issue. The first is Hunter Biden was put on the Burisma board. Second, he was put on that board with no qualifications. Third, Burisma asked him, can you weigh in with D.C. to relieve the pressure we're under from the prosecution, from the prosecutor here in Ukraine? And fourth, Joe Biden did just that. He leveraged our tax money to get the prosecutor fired. And that fourth fact is validation of what the confidential human source said in the 1023 form. So that is what is central to this case. And then you got all the other facts surrounding it: the emails, the dinners, the phone calls, the meetings, the 5,000 times he used the pseudonym and all that stuff. But those four central facts are really what this is about. And that's why the Speaker has said we're moving to this phase of our constitutional duty to do oversight of the executive branch.
But what changes? What more power do you have right now? I'm just reading Andy McCarthy's column, and he says the only thing that changes is the the name of the inquiry. You guys were still moving ahead. Do you have more power?
Well, if the Speaker of the House, second in line to the President, says we're in an impeachment inquiry phase, I think that means something. I think it will certainly mean something to courts when we get into the inevitable game that's going to play out here, where we want certain documents, we want certain witnesses to be deposed, and the administration says, no, they're going to drag their feet on that. So when that happens, I think that gives added weight to it. And then if we go to a vote, which we're not precluding from happening at all, the Speaker's not said that. If we go to a vote, I think that it gives even more weight to it. But that's the significance, I think, of what the Speaker announced yesterday.
Mr. Chairman.
Okay, so we know that they're going to be battling over subpoenas and documents. Okay, we've played this game here long enough. We're very familiar with reading a lot of their letters. So there will be more letters for impeachment purposes this time, not as a result. You know, every time we read one of the letters at the very end, they say in that final paragraph, just a reminder, government official, we are Congress and we can investigate anything for our legislative oversight functions under House Rule 10 or whatever rule they cite. And that is not going to be the basis for their authority moving forward. Right now, they're going to swap that paragraph out and say, we're not doing legislative function stuff. We're not interested in passing new legislation or whatever. Okay, now it's oversight. Now it's impeachment. So now your justification for rejecting this based on separation of powers or whatever no longer applies, because this is about impeachment, and that's a different category of separation. So Jordan saying step one is this now declaration of new power. And when the government rejects that, then they may take it to court and they will use that justification to convince the judge that they are entitled to the documents. But if not, if they still get stonewalled by the courts, they say, no problem. We'll turn around. We'll get what we can and go back to the House for a full impeachment vote if necessary. So the plan is underway. I don't know if it's going to actually help Joe Biden in any real way. I think that might be wishful thinking. I think that as this Pandora's box continues to open, they're going to have a much harder time with this. There's no evidence line. I think this is going to come back to bite them pretty severely, because there's pseudonyms. There's Hunter text messages saying, I'm sitting here with my daddy. There's Hunter texting him saying, or other family members saying, I've been paying for half of Joe Biden's stuff, this family's stuff, for 30 years. The mountains of evidence just continue to emerge. And so we'll continue to cover, my friends. Thank you for subscribing. Thank you for liking this video wherever it is you're watching this, and we'll look forward to seeing you on the next one. All right. Now, let's carry on speaking about some of this specific evidence. We've got some examples of this. 20 examples of Joe Biden's involvement in Hunter Biden's affairs for delusional Democrats. They keep telling us this new talking point that there is no evidence, not an iota of evidence, not a scintilla of evidence. And so today, to prove them wrong about this, we're going to go through a report from the Oversight Committee that says there are at least 20 bits of evidence that support their conclusion. And before we go into this, we'll make sure that those on the left understand the two types of evidence that are important: direct evidence and circumstantial evidence. So when they say there is no evidence, we can ask them specifically, what kind of evidence do you mean? Since you're talking about evidence, you mean like legal evidence, right? Why don't you tell us what type of evidence you're talking about? And of course, this is about two different tracks. The impeachment is not what the Democrats say it is. It's all just about a direct deposit payment into Joe Biden's bank account or something like that. We've got obstruction, we've got lies, and then we've got all of the allegations of Joe's direct involvement. And so we'll come back to that here in a minute. But just to be clear on this insane talking point that these guys have now distributed in their email newsletters or their text message groups or whatever, but this is a montage put together by Tom S. Elliott. He's over on Twitter. And this is a nice summary of exactly what they are doing out there. If you're not following Tom Elliott, make sure you're doing that. Great person to follow on the X. And here's what he says in this summary.
You know, the president has been in politics for a long time, and I think, as he would say, he's seen a lot of malarkey along the way, but this might take the cake.
This is all smoke and no fire.
What a waste of time and money.
I don't see any probable cause here. There's just no evidence.
I have not seen any evidence. There's no evidence of any crime at all.
No evidence so far that ties Joe Biden to any of this, at least nothing that they have brought forward and that we have seen.
Have you seen said evidence?
No, not a scintilla of evidence.
There is not a shred of evidence that President Joe Biden has engaged in wrongdoing.
No business dealings of Hunter Biden's or anyone's was discussed in these conversations.
I think they're making it up.
There is not a shred of evidence that President Joe Biden has committed an impeachable offense.
A substantial majority of Americans believe something which is not true.
There is not a shred of evidence that President Joe Biden has committed a crime.
You got to have a crime. Like you got to have some accusation you can make. And they don't really have anything right now.
I think the impeachment inquiry is absurd.
I think that that's absurd. It's ridiculous, of course.
This is part of the right wing's misinformation machine to try to confuse people.
Distract, distort, dissemble.
Confuse you.
Right now, we're in the distract phase.
What Hunter Biden may or may not have done does not even come close to the level of legal drama that's facing the former president of the United States.
There's 91 criminal charges against Donald Trump right now, 13 criminal charges against Congressman Santos, who was just on the show a few moments ago. They have nothing to say about that. There are no charges against Joe Biden, and they want to impeach the guy.
Trump was impeached, so was Biden. You know, Trump was investigated, so was Biden. There's corruption.
This is an illegitimate impeachment inquiry. Period. Full stop.
Full stop.
This could benefit President Biden.
Oh, really?
This could end up having ramifications for Republicans if voters who don't really want to see these kinds of inquiries all the time feel like this is going too far.
The American people want us to do something that will make their lives better, not go off on these chases and witch hunts.
Witch hunts from Chuck Schumer. So make sure you're giving Tom Elliott a follow on that for that beautiful montage. But you can see exactly what they're doing, right? The talking points have gone out. All of these lunatics just say the same old thing over and over and over again, like a broken record. But they say no evidence, no evidence, no evidence. Well, Comer has put together a nice summation of this. But before we hear from Comer and go into the actual report, I want to just pause and articulate these two different tracks so we can tease this out. And what the Democrats will try to do here is obfuscate this and just say that there's no evidence, but we've got to really break that down. What type of evidence are they talking about? And evidence to prove what? Okay, it's what is the evidence being used for? It's not just regular evidence. We got to use it for something. And so when I think about the impeachment, there's two main tracks that we can talk about. Now, the one that is the most obvious, that we spend a lot of time here, is Joe Biden actually being involved with Hunter, right? Actually, the speaker phone calls, actually showing up at meetings, writing Devin Archer a letter saying, I'm great, I'm happy and thrilled that you're hanging out with my son now. You know, showing up to the golf events, getting the phone call from DC and all of those things. That's actual direct involvement. And this is what the Democrats say there is no evidence of. And we'll obviously smash that to bits here by going through this report where there's 20 plus examples of that. And we'll just hit the highlights there. But that's what we think about often, okay? Did Joe actually get the big check from the Price is Right for guessing the Burisma prosecutor right? Did that happen? But that's just one small component. And the Democrats are going to want very concrete evidence here. They want the Venmo transaction. They want the bank account transaction or whatever. Otherwise, they're going to say it's just too far out there. It's too far removed. Whereas the Republicans, they're going to want a big hula hoop. They're going to want to expand it and say, no, this is evidence of this, and it should show intent, and they were colluding with this people, kind of like what Big Fanny is doing, and connecting all the dots, right? All these overt acts that may not by themselves under RICO be a crime, but when you add them all up together under the totality of the circumstances of the crime, then you can bundle them together and say, oh, okay, there's enough evidence to support that, which is what we'll talk about. But this is just one component of this. Now, there's a whole parallel track in this impeachment process, in my opinion, that is focused on Biden's literal obstruction and his lies to America. Okay, so he basically lied to us, 50 times. Debate stage, talking about the 51 laptop letter, right? All of these things were lies about his involvement with Hunter. He communicated to us, and that was a dishonest thing to do. Now, you could make the argument that maybe that wasn't something he made under oath, that maybe that's not a high crime or misdemeanor or any of those things, but the obstruction certainly is. Now, if his son is being prosecuted by his own Department of Justice and the DOJ somehow conveniently evaporates the actual investigation, as has been told to us through the IRS whistleblowers, Shapley and Ziegler, that is another problem, right? That is obstructing his own Justice Department or obstructing justice in his own Justice Department. And that is something that we've also seen happen. We've got Garrett Ziegler telling us about that. I'm sorry, that's Marco Polo. Shout out to Garrett Ziegler, also from Marco Polo. And then we've also got Joseph Ziegler, the IRS whistleblower, and Shapley communicating about these obstructions. IRS whistleblowers, FBI special agent who was paid 6 figures from the FBI as an informant for years, told us about a lot of this stuff. But we also have Shapley's notes saying that Merrick Garland lied to us about what David Weiss, the actual prosecutor, was allowed to do. So we're going to go through all of that. These 2 tracks, we also have to ask ourselves what type of evidence is being presented. What the Democrats say, there's no evidence. There's not a shred, not one scintilla of evidence, they say. Well, we'll see. There's 2 different types. One is called direct evidence, and this is when a person has personal knowledge of the crime. Like they're there, they saw it, okay? I watched the person pull the knife out at that time. I could see it, I could observe it like an eyewitness. But also it could mean that it is just evidence which immediately points to the question at issue. That's from Georgia. There was another case. It says direct evidence directly links a person to a crime. It demonstrates the ultimate fact to be proved, right? Now we contrast that with what's called circumstantial evidence, also very important, and I'll give an example of this here. But circumstantial evidence is one that does not on its face prove a fact in issue, but it creates an inference of the thing that happened. So circumstantial evidence requires drawing an additional inference in order to support the claim. So here's one example that prosecutors use all the time in court. They'll say direct evidence is when you are outside on your front patio and you watch the snow hit the ground and you say there is now snow on the ground. You have direct evidence of that, okay? If you're called into court to testify about that, hey, was there snow on the ground? Did you see snow on the ground out there, Mr. Witness? And they'll say, yes, I did. Well, how did you see it? Well, how do you know? Well, I saw it. I saw it come down. And now that witness is testifying in court that I saw this thing happen, okay? That is direct evidence. I am a witness with personal knowledge of the commission of a crime, or the weather in this case, the snow falling on the ground, and I saw it with my personal senses. That is literally the definition of direct evidence, okay? And you can look this up on Cornell or anywhere else you want to look it up. That's direct evidence. Now, if one person observed any of this stuff, they're going to say that's enough. Circumstantial evidence also is the same thing. It's a different concept, but it's evidence that can be used in criminal cases. And this requires an inference. So the example with the snow is, if you're brought in and the question is, did it snow? You can't say, let's say you did not see it happen, but you were inside asleep. And so you're sleeping, you wake up the next morning, you go outside, there's snow on the ground. When you went to bed, there was no snow on the ground. You woke up, you went outside, guess what? There's snow on the ground. Did it snow? You can say, yes, I believe it did snow. Why? Because I was going to bed, there was no snow. I woke up, there was snow. You made an inference. You didn't see the snowfall, but you inferred that it fell, and you can make that conclusion. And so when you are brought into court, you can testify about that. And the defense can say, well, isn't it true? Isn't it possible that somebody could have brought over big dump trucks of snow and dumped it all over the ground? And you could say, yeah, it's possible. Did it happen? Well, I don't know. I didn't see that happen. So you just believed that it just fell out of the sky, didn't you? Yes, I did. And the defense then could maybe offer some evidence that somebody brought dump trucks out to dump it all over the ground, right? Now, either way, both types of evidence are used in criminal trials, which means it's either direct evidence of Joe Biden's involvement, which we've got plenty of because Joe Biden went to dinners, called on speakerphones, and did other things, including using pseudonyms and emails and all sorts of other things involved. But there's also people who can fill in the gaps. They didn't see the snowfall, but they can come out the next day and say, yeah, Hunter's call to D.C. was probably to Joe Biden. So now that we know what type of evidence is actually out there, and now that we know that there are these 2 tracks of the impeachment, obstruction and Biden's actual involvement, let's have James Comer bring us up to speed on exactly where we are now and how far we've come, uncovering all of the criminality from the Bidens.
Thank you, Chair Stefanik, and I appreciate Mr. Emmer letting me jump in here. We have a committee hearing that will begin shortly. I just want to kind of go back to where we were in January when we started this investigation. This was the narrative. The narrative was that the laptop, the president's son's laptop, was Russian disinformation. Hunter Biden was a legitimate business guy, just like Jared Kushner. No, Biden ever took money from China, because that's what Joe Biden said. no money ever changed hands while Joe Biden was vice president. And I actually believe that.
I believe that too.
Joe knew nothing about his son's dealings, and Joe never met with or spoke with any of the foreign nationals who had wired the family money. All of those things have been proven wrong because of the Republican majority and our investigation.
I actually also believe that. I don't think we're going to find a bank transaction from Hunter to Dad, memo, Burisma cut, 50% to Joe. That's never going to happen, obviously. But all of those other myths, all of those other lies have evaporated in the time that the Oversight Committee has been investigating this. And now they have dropped 20 examples, at least, of Joe Biden's involvement in the influence peddling scheme. And so here's what they tell us. They give us a couple samples of this thing. And they say in July 2023, we've got one bit of evidence, Devin Archer. Now there's 20 different bits of evidence here. We're not going to read through them all just in the interest of time, but I do want to hit the highlights and show you what's going on here. But in July, business associate Devin Archer described the following. Mr. Mondolfo asks Mr. Archer, they say, hey, Devin, you keep saying that the quote, the brand, but by brand, you mean the Biden family, right? And that brand is what, in your opinion? Was the majority of the value it was delivered from Hunter to Burisma? He says, well, I didn't say the majority. I wouldn't speculate on percentages, but I do think that it was an element of it. Hunter was an element of it. So when you say the Biden family, sorry to cut in here, I just want to get a clarification. The Biden family, you aren't talking about Dr. Jill or anybody else, are you, Mr. Archer? You're talking about Joe Biden. Is that fair to say? A witness, a key witness. Yeah, that's fair to say. Mr. Archer is a person that Joe Biden wrote a letter to. Joe Biden took pictures with Mr. Archer on the golf club course. And he's got evidence now, direct evidence that we just learned about, personal knowledge that says that's fair to say. Listen, I don't think it's about, as you know, Joe directly, but it's fair. That's fair to say. Obviously, that brought the most value to the brand, okay? How is that not direct evidence? You have a witness who's been in literal conversations with Joe Biden many times, testifying from his own personal knowledge that Joe Biden is the brand that they are selling around the world. Devin also said that he was aware of at least 20 times when Biden was speaking on speakerphone with Hunter's foreign business associates. 20 times of these phone calls. Question to Devin. How many times would you say that Hunter Biden put his father on the speakerphone? Devin, who's a family friend for a long time. Reference his father being on the phone. How many times? Approximately? Well, the difference between an investor and a normal course of a day, it's a hard thing to speculate on, but they spoke every day. He acknowledged that they spoke every day. Devin's talking about Hunter and Joe. And he would sometimes make it apparent that he spoke to his dad, and sometimes Hunter would put his dad on the speakerphone. But as far as quantifying the number, relative to the investors, I don't know. He says, well, okay, not necessarily investors, but with people who Hunter Biden was trying to either get business with or to make contacts with. How many times? He says, in my whole partnership, maybe 20 times. 20 phone calls. That's Devin Archer, who was there, personal knowledge, observing Joe Biden make a phone call on speakerphone to investors. It's literally direct evidence. Now, the Democrats would have you believe that this is all just insane, right? But this is a key witness that you would bring in, and he would testify. I was there. I saw it. And during those 20 times, did Hunter ever place his dad on the phone? Yes. There you go. What's he doing? Talking about the weather those 20 times with Hunter's business partners? More direct evidence that the Democrats don't even want to think about. In February 2014, so now this is backing up a bit, Vice President Joe Biden dined with oligarchs from Russia and from Kazakhstan. They funneled millions of dollars to Hunter Biden. They said, question, Mr. Archer, I want to ask you about this. Going back to this, it would be what? Spring 2014 Cafe Milano dinner. He says, yeah, the spring of 14, yeah, the first one. And since we talked about it before the break, Devin, if you could just recap, can you say who was there at that meeting in 2014? He says, yeah, sure. It was Keynes Rakashev, Karim Mazimov, Yelena Baturina, a Russian oligarch who still has not been sanctioned because of Biden, possibly Yuri, Hunter Biden, Joe Biden. Oh, man, look at that one. Joe Biden was there at the meeting, and possibly Eric Sherwin. And I'm sure they just talked about the weather the whole time. It's a bunch of business people, Russian oligarchs and their business associate, Eric Sherwin. The duration of the time that Joe Biden stayed there, you said you couldn't recall. But do you recall whether he had dinner? Did he actually eat a meal? Or did he just shake hands and leave? He had dinner. Yeah, I recall that he had dinner. It was a regular, not a long dinner, but it was a dinner. And so this dinner takes place in spring 2014. But then you get a call about this message from Yelena Baturina. So you have dinner. February 14th, then, the same woman, Yelena Baturina, who was there, wires $3.5 million to one of Hunter's companies, Rosemont Seneca Thornton. Isn't that incredible? Russian oligarch has dinner with the vice president. Suddenly, $3.5 million gets transferred over to the other associates. And this is Devin Archer, again, making this conversation. This is direct evidence. He says, I was at the dinner. I observed Joe Biden being there, and that was a business meeting. And he can't articulate what they talked about, but anybody can make the inference that maybe that is not a... So the other evidence, right? This evidence that there was now a payment that is made, that is circumstantial evidence. Okay, now we make the inference. One can come to a logical conclusion that a meeting happens and the money gets paid. So now we've got, in this one example, direct evidence in the form of testimony from Devin Archer, along with circumstantial evidence in the form of payments that ended up $3.5 million to Rosemont Seneca after the dinner meeting, right? It's clear, like this is just criminal law basics 101. Every one of those Democrats in that stupid clip that we just played is dead wrong about it. They know that, but they're lying to us all. Here's another example. April 2015, Vice President dined with Hunter Biden's foreign business associates, including Burisma executive. Biden had dinner with Hunter's business associate called Vladimir Pozharsky. Burisma was then being investigated by the prosecutor called Victor Shokin. Hey, let's talk about the second dinner. Archer says the second dinner. All right, the spring 2015 Cafe Milano. Devin, who was there? He says that dinner, I think we went over it before, but it was Vadim, Hunter, Joe, myself, Kareem. Joe and Hunter were there. There was a Greek Orthodox priest, maybe someone from World Food Program. And what did Joe at that dinner? What did Joe do at that dinner? Did he have dinner? How long was he there? Devin says, oh yeah, he had dinner. He had dinner. And there was on that one, I believe the first one, it was like a birthday dinner. And then the second was, I think we were supposed to talk about the World Food Program or something like that. Okay, so Hunter is dragging Joe around and he's introducing him to people who were a part of Hunter's business deals. Again, more direct evidence. This is not made up evidence. This is not third-hand evidence. This is Devin Archer, who has personal knowledge of what he witnessed, communicating it. Then, Vice President had coffee with Hunter's Chinese business associate, Jonathan Lee of BHR. And he wrote a letter of recommendation for the daughter. Question to Devin. Did you ever witness Hunter asking Joe to do something for BHR or to help out Jonathan Lee, who was Hunter's business associate? Devin says, yeah, a college recommendation. She didn't get in. Yeah, probably the academics were like, what, a recommendation from Joe Biden? The plagiarist? No thanks. Sorry. For who? I think it was for his daughter to Georgetown. Didn't work. So they tried to squeeze her into Georgetown. So Hunter has a business associate. He uses daddy to get a college recommendation for her. Sure, daddy never met her, but he's just trying to get some grease from the vice president for his affairs. Another example, 2015. Vice President Biden hosted Hunter and Devin and other business associates at the official residence of the VP. Brought him into the White House, Vice President's office. The topic of the discussion was filling the top seat in the United Nations. The Kazakhstani government official who wanted the UN position attended both dinners with then Vice President Biden. So now they're saying he's getting people appointed and bringing them to dinners. They said, and then by spring of 2015, you attended breakfast at the Naval Observatory. No. Do you remember that? No, the UN secretary was not present. Who was present? Well, there was a gentleman named Mark Holtzman, myself, Hunter, and the vice president was there. And what was the discussion about? About who is going to be the next UN Secretary General. Why were you involved in that? Why were you involved? Because Mark Holtzman was lobbying for Kareem Mazamov, but it didn't happen, right? So Hunter is getting paid to introduce people, to get leverage, to get positions as ambassadors, right? He's selling access. And once again, this is a witness called Devin Archer who is there observing it all firsthand. He can testify about it. You could bring him right in and testify. It's literally direct evidence. And then you can fill in the gaps with circumstantial evidence and follow the money. We also know that there was a pseudonym used by Robert L. Peters. This one was when Vice President Biden was informed by his staff about a Ukraine call. Who was copied on that official email? Hunter Biden was. And Hunter was sitting on the board of the Ukrainian company Burisma. Now, these things I think are probably the most damning because it's just literally directly to PCI.gov. This is May 26, 2016. Joe Biden still vice president. This is an email from John S. Flynn from the Executive Office of the Vice President at ovp.eop.gov. Sending a letter, an email to Robert L. Peters. Okay, this is the fake Joe Biden email. Robert.L.Peters@PCI.gov. And we know that this is just a government domain. So government operators were going in there and creating fake aliases for Joe Biden. So Joe Biden's team sends him an email. They say, hey, boss, 8:45 prep for a 9 a.m. phone call with Poroshenko. That's Ukraine. Then we're off to Rhode Island for the infrastructure event, then to Wilmington. Nate will have your draft remarks delivered later tonight with your press clips in the morning. Respectfully, signed off on, John. Guess who's copied on this email? Hunter Biden at Rosemont Seneca. So the White House Vice President's office is sending fake pseudonym emails to Joe, and then Hunter gets copied on it, and it's literally involving Ukraine, which is where Hunter Biden sits on the board. And this is direct evidence of involvement, about discussions involving Ukraine. So this is more evidence that you would bring in to supplement your other claims. Now, if this was Big Fannie Willis doing any of this, right, each one of these would be an overt act and there would be a RICO case immediately. But of course, that's not happening right now. And so the Oversight Committee has assembled 20 different examples here. And there's just more and more. They go on and on and on. We've got emails. We've got transcripts. It's direct evidence. It's circumstantial evidence. And we know that the Biden crime family was involved in all of it. But for some reason, the Democrats can't figure it out. Here's another bit of evidence directly from Hunter Biden. He said to China, and Z, if I get a call or a text from anyone involved in this other than you, Zhang, or the chairman, I will make certain that between the man sitting next to me and every person he knows and my ability to forever hold a grudge, that you will regret not following my direction. That was in 2017, 7/30/2017. And so a lot more evidence about the involvement. Here's another one. I'm tired of this, Kevin. I can make $5 million salary at any law firm in America. If you think this is about money, it's not. The Bidens are the best I know at doing exactly what the chairman wants from this partnership. Let's not quibble over peanuts. And this is Hunter over to Gong Wang Dong. The Bidens, right? It's not just Joe, it's not just Hunter. Who are the Bidens without Joe Biden? There is no Bidens without Joe Biden. Rob Walker also had a recorded interview. He told agents that Joe Biden attended a CEFC meeting. That's the Hunter Chinese business deal. Why was Joe Biden attending a business meeting? And Rob Walker, he says that he has evidence of that. Let's see. Okay. Special Agent John Wilson, FBI. Did the VP ever show up at the CEFC meeting or anything like that? Even once he was out of office, Rob Walker says yes. Oh, there's more direct evidence of that. At times when he was in office, did you hear Hunter say that he was setting up a meeting with his dad with them while dad was still in office? Rob Walker, yeah. So Rob Walker, as a person who had a direct sense impression, did you hear with your own ears, with your organs, Hunter say something like he's setting up a meeting with his dad with them while his dad was still in office? Rob Walker says yes. Rob Walker is a witness who can provide direct evidence of Hunter explaining that Joe was involved. Now, that doesn't mean he's guilty. Joe would still have the presumption of innocence, and he could, of course, come out and rebut that and say, well, Hunter just said that. Hunter just made it up. Maybe Joe was never involved or not. But you would still, that's still circumstantial evidence, and you can still bring the case. This is direct evidence from Rob Walker. Combined with all of the other evidence, you could bring a case, right? It's clear evidence. Now, the fact that they just, bury their heads in the sand is all intentional. More evidence here. Hunter's business partners visited the White House over 80 times when Biden was VP. There's more evidence there. Hunter's friend tells Congress that then VP Joe joined dozens of Son's business meetings on the phone. That's April 11, 2023. Here's more evidence for all the lefties who can't figure it out. That's Hunter Biden right there. That's Joe Biden right there. This is October 2015. Hunter arranged a video call with his Mexican business partners. The next month, then VP Joe hosted Hunter's literal Mexican business partners and his associate at the VP's official residence. There's photographs of this stuff. Daily Mail says Joe Biden entertained Hunter's Mexican billionaire business associates and even flew with his son to Mexico City on Air Force Two. Direct evidence of the travel, direct evidence of the associations in the form of videos and photographs, and it's in emails. And so we're over 20 now. In 2019, Hunter texted his daughter. He said, unlike Pop, meaning Joe Biden, I won't make you give me half of your salary. Unlike Pop, I'm not going to make you give half of your salary up. Daughter says to his daughter, I hope you all can do what I did and pay for everything for this entire family for 30 years. It's really hard, but don't worry. Unlike Pop, I won't make you give me half your salary. Okay, well, so that's more evidence. Now, again, Joe Biden could rebut all of this. All right, he could say, I never did that. I never gave him any, I never made him give me salary at all, not one time. That's his choice. And this is exactly what you could do in any criminal case, but they're not even interested in pursuing this because this apparently is not enough evidence. Hunter, I've been made to give half my salary to my daddy, Joe Biden. Now, what form is that? Who knows? We don't know if, I really doubt that there are financial transactions into Joe Biden's bank accounts. What I would guess is there are other people paying for everything and Joe Biden just inherits the benefits. No money needs to change hands at all, but everything is paid for very conveniently. And that's what the situation has been for years. So 20 plus bits of evidence, direct evidence, circumstantial evidence, both attacking two different points of their argument that Joe Biden did nothing wrong, didn't obstruct anything. We now know that Gary Shapley is communicating that they said when they said that Merrick Garland promised that Shapley could file charges anywhere he wanted. Turns out that is not true. These are Gary Shapley's notes, his handwritten notes that have now been released that show that when he met with David Weiss, look, he's communicating who's in the meeting. Tom's there. Gary's there. Look who this is. Sean's there. And David Weiss is in this meeting. He says, IRS meeting, refer to the DOJ, OIG. Weiss stated right here, he is not the deciding person. Weiss, he is not the deciding person. Joe Biden and Merrick Garland, through the DOJ, told us that's not true. They said that he was the deciding person. He could bring charges in California or DC or anywhere, but not according to the whistleblower. And these are his contemporaneous notes from the day of the meeting. said not going to change. Merrick Garland, through Joe Biden, lied to all of us. They obstructed this entire investigation. Shapley knew about it when he wrote down his meeting, looks like October 9th, 11:15. More stuff here from his handwritten notes has been redacted, but report the income is what I see here, 2015. Archer something pays somebody. If approved, tax will grant discretion, but if not approved, if the California U.S. Attorney says no, Weiss will request approval to proceed in California. California decision not determined, or something. Weiss says he will request approval to proceed in CA. CA decision not determined. So, but he says, I'm not the person who is the deciding person, right? And so Gary Shapley and Joseph Ziegler and the other whistleblowers are out here showing us that there is massive obstruction that took place. Joe Biden is now shocked and saddened that his son has been indicted because they've been trying to prevent that from happening. They are going to continue to try to do that, but there is a mountain of evidence. This fake idea that there's not a shred is just propaganda from the left, thoroughly debunked. As more evidence comes out, we're going to see a lot more of it, and we'll see if they stand by their words. I doubt it. We'll continue to cover, my friends. Thank you for subscribing and hitting that like button wherever it is you're watching this, and we'll look forward to seeing you on the next one. All right. Now, we've got one final segment on the day because the White House is a little bit nervous. The Biden White House is now ordering the media to defend Joe from the Republican impeachment attacks. They're under attack. And this guy, Ian Sams, over at the White House counsel's office, hopped on TV and he's defending the president. He's saying, look, Joe loves his son. And so stop asking questions about it. But he's not just making his pitch on TV, which he's fair to do. He's also using the power of the White House and the government to put pressure on the media and ordering the media to take action to stop the Republican onslaught. Now, we've got clips from Schiff, and Matt Gaetz is going to explain why this is very obvious and easy for anybody to prove. But impeachment is in season, and Ian Sams is now putting pressure on the media to stop them, to help them stop the Republicans from the attacks. Now, this is coming, look at this, from the White House counsel's office, right? This is the White House. Ian Sams, special assistant to the president and senior advisor to the White House counsel's office, right? The White House attorneys. And we were pretty outraged when the White House was sending letters and sending demands to Twitter telling them to censor people and whatever. But now this is the White House openly sending literal talking points, like bullet points, talking points to the media. You can see them listed here. And they're telling them it's time for the media to do more to scrutinize House Republicans and their false claims that they're basing their impeachment on. Okay, White House lawyers using the leverage of the government to pressure the media to take action, do more. Could you imagine just for 1 minute if Trump said anything like this to the media? You do this or else. Do more to attack the Democrats when they're impeaching me. Now, you're free to make your claims and go out and make your pitch on the media and make your argument, but this is a memo to the leadership at the news media organizations. So this is what this guy wrote. He says, after nearly 9 months of investigating, House Republicans haven't been able to turn up any evidence of the president doing anything wrong. And we previously here have gone through many different examples. But House Republicans led by Marjorie are nonetheless opening up a baseless impeachment inquiry. And didn't we hear baseless the last time we talked about the election, right? And it wasn't the claims of election fraud and a rigged election were not all that baseless after all, were they? They were actually quite pretty based, those claims. We're probably going to see the same thing here. Despite many House Republicans openly admitting there is no evidence on which to support it. And so they're going to pull out the useful idiot Republicans. Okay, and they've actually got a lot of them here. They've got this guy. They say impeachment is grave, rare, and historic. They did it twice for Trump. The Constitution requires treason, bribery, or other high crimes and misdemeanors. Yeah, they impeached Trump for a phone call, okay, for the first time. A phone call. And then they launched it twice in one term, lunatics. But House Republicans are publicly stating that they have uncovered none of these things. Okay, so we have a couple of these useful idiot Republicans. Ken Buck said, if there's evidence linking President Biden to a high crime or misdemeanor, but that evidence doesn't exist right now. Dave Joyce from Ohio. So remember these people, remember these people if you live in these states. Ken Buck from Colorado, dummy, can't figure it out. I don't think that evidence has been presented. I'm not convinced that evidence exists, Colorado. Representative Dave Joyce from Ohio, moron, told Forbes, he said he is not seeing facts or evidence that would merit an impeachment inquiry. Somebody should send him the Marco Polo book, see if it wakes his ass up. Excuse me. Republican Representative Dusty Johnson from South Dakota told CNN that there is a constitutional and legal test that you have to meet with evidence when it comes to impeachment, and he has not seen that evidence. So that's Dusty Johnson from South Dakota. We've got Don Bacon from Nebraska. Says, I think before we move on, we should have a direct link to the president. I guess he wants receipts or something, right? He wants receipts and a big check. This person, Representative French Hill from Arkansas, told CBS that Republicans have not even remotely completed their work. This guy, Mike Lawler from New York, we're not there yet. North Carolina, Chuck Edwards. And this Republican lawmaker says there's no evidence that Joe Biden got money. And again, that's what they're waiting for, the Venmo transaction. A senior House Republican told Politico, we haven't proven the case for impeachment. That's why how do we start it? So, right, this is what they're telling the media. So, hey, Wolf Blitzer and Jake Tapper and MSNBC Rachel Maddow, when she comes back out for her 1 day of work a week, she can come back out and she can have all of these links. And he's probably linking them back to the actual video files so that they can just put them out on their networks. CNN, they say, has reported that there are 30 House Republicans that don't think there's enough evidence yet. And Speaker McCarthy is flip-flopping on his own commitment to a vote. So here's what they are ordering the media. They say, but reporting from you guys that solely focuses on the process rather than the substance is woefully inadequate when it comes to something as historically grave as impeachment. And they really don't want Joe Biden to have that label because this is their label that they use against Trump. They say he's been twice impeached. And so if Joe has been impeached, oh man, that kind of takes the power out of their stupid label. So here's what the White House is ordering the media to do. It's time for the media to ramp up its scrutiny of House Republicans for opening an impeachment inquiry based on lies. And Jake Tapper's probably just fired up. He's all jazzed up. He's like, yeah, let's go. When even White House Republican members are admitting that there is simply no evidence, which is, again, this is their talking point, no evidence, no evidence. It's going to be like, trust the science, or baseless claims of fraud, baseless, or illegal and unprovoked invasion, no evidence. Much less impeachable, this should set off alarm bells for news organizations, alarm bells for you guys that the White House wants you to do something. For years, Republicans have tried to muddy the waters by attracting media coverage, but it is the responsibility, it's the responsibility of the independent press, yeah, right, that you're putting pressure on right now to make not independent, these people are nuts, to treat their claims with scrutiny. Covering the impeachment as a process story, like Republicans say X, but the White House says Y, is a disservice to the American public. So if you report on something and you say Republicans, this is their argument, and the Democrat, this is their argument, that's not good enough. You need to take an active role. We rely on the independent press to hold those in power accountable, except the Biden White House. And in the modern media environment where everyday liars and hucksters, probably like us is who he's talking about, peddle disinformation and lies everywhere from Facebook to Fox to YouTube, process stories that are just talking about the mechanics, fail to unpack the illegitimacy of the claims on which House Republicans are basing all their actions, only to generate confusion and put false premises in people's feeds and obscure the truth. Yes, that's what we're doing here, aren't we? Confusing everybody by showing them transcripts and direct evidence of the crimes. House Republicans and leaders should be held accountable, right? Meaning that, what, you want to indict them too? For the fact that they are lurching towards impeachment over allegations that are not only unfounded, but virtually in all cases have been actively disproven, they say, including by witnesses and documents in their own investigations, as well as year-old congressional probes and even the former president's first impeachment inquiry. As you begin to cover, telling the media, this is Wolf and Blitzer and Tapper and you know these people. As you begin to cover the House GOP's impeachment push more intensely, enclosed you will find a 14-page appendix from the White House that comprehensively addresses the 7 key lies House Republicans are suggesting they are basing an impeachment on. We hope this document helps you provide you with factual information useful in your reporting on their unprecedented, unfounded claims underlying an impeachment inquiry without any evidence of wrongdoing. No evidence, no evidence, no evidence, no evidence. We know there's mounds of evidence. Amazing. So not only are they prosecuting their political opponents, but they also want to co-opt the media to make sure that when they're investigated, that the media plays cover for them. And this is, insane Banana Republic type stuff, if I've ever seen it. Demanding it's time for the media to do something. There are what happens if the media doesn't do something? Is the White House going to take action against them? Are they going to investigate them like they're doing to Elon Musk? Are they going to basically start to threaten to indict him and take him off the playing field if the media doesn't play ball? This is a direct threat, in my opinion. It is a demand from the White House's office to the media to start doing something about this. It is, I would say, a violation of the First Amendment. And it is so reprehensible, but it doesn't surprise me at all that they're doing it. So that is what Ian Sams wrote. And this is the guy, this is what he sounds like on the TV.
The president was present at some of the meetings between Hunter Biden and his business associates. Why was the president at those meetings on those phone calls?
Well, again, I think this is part of the right wing's misinformation machine to try to confuse people about what the truth is. The truth is that the president, as he has said publicly for years, calls his family every day to check in. He calls his son every day to check in. He calls his other family members to check in to see how they're doing. He loves them. They're a tight-knit family. And what the GOP's own witness testified in this case.
He does love them. He loves them. He loves them in a certain way. Ashley Biden's diary has something to say about that one.
Is that's exactly what the president was doing. He was checking in with Hunter during a particularly hard time, I might add, a time where the family was going through Hunter's brother Beau's illness. And of course the president checks in with his son and talks to him. But again, that witness testified no business dealings of Hunter Biden's or anyone's was discussed in these conversations. And so again, they're trying to make this sort of strange connection when their own investigation has disproven these claims.
Before I let you go, Ian, has the president responded in terms of how the president has reacted to this, especially as somebody who's been in politics and been in Washington for as long as he has been, the idea that he is now subject to an impeachment inquiry as president of the United States? What's his response to that?
The president has been in politics for a long time, and I think, as he would say, he's seen a lot of malarkey along the way, but this might take the cake. He's focused on the issues that actually matter to the American people. You just saw him spending the last week traveling around the world, shoring up our alliances, advancing national interests in Asia, our economic interests in Asia, showing American leadership on the world stage. He's coming back here. He's announcing today a $250 million investment in cancer research to try to finally cure cancer. That's what his administration and this president is focused on every day. They're focused on the actual needs of the American people. And I think what he would say is maybe the House Republicans should join him.
One thing, and this will be my last one, a lot of people in Washington right now, and I know this is probably going to drive your team.
Yeah, we're all waiting for an actual response for him. He loves his son. We're all supposed to believe that they didn't talk about any business, that there was nothing shady going on there, that Hunter wasn't exploiting his relationship with his father to make a bunch of money. And Joe Biden didn't know anything about it, is what they say. Here is one of the biggest liars in American history who has been censured, another historic thing for this guy in American history. Adam Schiff, Pencil Neck, says there is no evidence.
What do you make of Speaker McCarthy's move today to launch a new inquiry into President Biden without a full House vote?
Well, this is really based on two things. It's based on the weakness of Kevin McCarthy's speakership, the fact that he doesn't have the moral authority with his members, doesn't have control over his conference, and is beholden to the most extreme elements who want an impeachment of Joe Biden, an impeachment without evidence. And second, this is again Kevin McCarthy doing the bidding of Donald Trump. Donald Trump wants to somehow dilute the stain of his impeachments. He wants to try to weaken Joe Biden going into the presidential election. So this is Kevin McCarthy doing what Donald Trump says once again. And I'll tell you what it's not. It's not impeachment based on high crimes or misdemeanors or any evidence of such things. This is an essentially evidence-free impeachment, and it is purely politically motivated by McCarthy and Donald Trump.
But do you not have any concerns about the questionable business dealings of Hunter Biden and possible ties to the president when he was vice president?
Well, there's been no evidence of ties to the president or any evidence of any wrongdoing on the part of Joe Biden. Look, I don't think any presidential family member should traffic on the family name. I didn't think so of the Trump kids, and I don't think Hunter Biden should have either. But that's a long cry from saying that the president has engaged in any wrongdoing. He hasn't. This is, of course, nothing to do with evidence. Again, this is Donald Trump exerting his will over Kevin McCarthy beholden to his MAGA elements in the conference, trying to cling on to the speakership for one more day, one more week, maybe one more month.
So no evidence at all. They still have a hard time finding any of it. I do think that there is some truth to that. I think McCarthy probably is feeling some heat now to do something about this because the evidence just keeps coming out. But saying that this is political, I really don't even care about that, to be perfectly honest with you. I mean, what they're doing is weaponize political prosecution. So if they're like, it's like, yeah, impeach them for politics. Who cares? I don't think that that is the big winning talking point. Like, is there still a contingency in this country that thinks that there is a basis for not apolitical processes anymore? I don't think so. I think everything is hyper partisan and everybody realizes that. So like this bipartisan feature, I think that's just a myth now. Doesn't everybody know that it's just a myth? Here's Matt Gaetz. He says, you know, this stuff is so easy, even a law school student can figure it out.
I don't know.
And it's something that is not complicated. Here is Gaetz.
That Nicole Wallace was living in. As it relates to the work ahead, we can call it whatever we want, but Joe Biden was involved in in Hunter's business deals. And then when the evidence became overwhelming as a consequence of the bank records, you had the Department of Justice attempt a sweetheart deal that functioned less as an admission and more as an inoculation for Hunter Biden. So they were corrupt. They got rich off of it. U.S. policy changed. They dissolved the China policy at the Department of Justice established by President Trump to go after the malign influence of the Chinese Communist Party in our country. And you saw that prosecutor get fired, not as a consequence of true, policy objectives of the United States. In 2015, there was an interagency review saying that Shulkin was doing enough to warrant continued aid.
Great job.
And then you have Joe Biden use that as leverage, that very aid, so that the people paying Hunter and supporting the lifestyle of the entire Biden family could get rich. Like, this is not a hard story to tell. A first-year law student could win this case before a fair jury. Now, the United States Senate isn't a fair jury. It's full of great fashion icons like John Fetterman. But I think that the Senate will be the platform and the American people will be the jury when we put that case on before them.
All right. So I think that's appropriate, right? Continue the investigation, uncover the facts, bring the facts out to the public, and we can see it. If it's partisan, who cares? That's what they're doing. They're the ones who have started all of this with the political prosecutions of Donald Trump. If the Republicans open up an inquiry, they scream from the rooftops about what an unfair, unjust environment this is, and they demand the media take action to protect themselves. And you know what? The media is probably going to do it, which is why it's so important that we continue our work here to combat those lies from them. And that's why we appreciate you subscribing. We really appreciate you sharing this show and sharing our videos, sharing our shorts, the little short form videos with others so that we can reach more people and expand our great work. Thank you for subscribing and liking this video, my friends, and we'll see you on the next one. All right, my friends. that is it for us on the day. We covered some good ground. Biden's orders, little dictator over there from the gates of hell, telling his minions to get out there and start prosecuting the case in the media. We've also got 20 clear examples of Joe Biden's actual involvement, direct evidence, circumstantial evidence, obstruction, lies, not to mention the actual involvement in the business deals. We know also that they're a little bit rattled as a result of this impeachment fallout stuff. Is it going to help Joe? I don't know. I doubt it. But now, my friends, it is time to hear from you and to see what you guys have to say about this with your very generous, very lovely support from our friends at watchingthewatchers.locals.com, our friends on YouTube, our friends on Rumble. We appreciate everybody's incredible support. And to start us off today, we got the good doctors in the house. What's up, Doc? And this was from our morning segment this morning. NY says, I think it's amusing. We were talking about the New Mexico gun ban. I think it's amusing that New Mexico eliminated qualified immunity last year. And the AG of New Mexico in a letter stated it would not defend the governor from pending litigation. And yeah, we covered that letter from the New Mexico AG this morning. Good to see you, Doc. We got Dolphin Fan is the man, starting the day off beautifully with 5 new membos, courtesy of Dolphin Fan. Thanks, Dolphin. Bringing in Superman's coming in. We've got Derek Z, Tsunami Tommy's in the house. We've got Selly Safey, and along with Afterwise coming into the house. Thanks to Dolphin Fan is the man for bringing them in. And we got Quantum Thug Life, who thugs it out in multiple dimensions, bringing in 5 members. We've got CDX Greeds here. We got Grant R, Tim R, Gina, and Sweet Tat is in the house, courtesy of Quantum Thug Life, who is corking it out in interstellar space. We got MAGA Hat Stays, says Vivek DeSantis Christie working with DC Bush affiliated attorney to keep Trump off the ballot. Says Ramesh Swampy, says MAGA Hat Stays. I don't know about that. I happen to like Vivek. I think he's pretty good out there. But I'll have to look into that. Is he trying to keep Trump off the ballot? That's certainly not what he says. Art Taylor says, ask me no questions and I'll lie anyways. Yours truly, Karine Jean Pierre in the house. Thank you, Art Taylor, over on Locals. She's pretty consistent. You got to give it to her there. And she was pretty irritated today, I thought. Dan says, whatever happened to real journalism? Now it's all BS. It's all just propaganda on both sides, honestly. It's just the same story. They just get their talking points from the parties and they just go do it. And they, that's why nobody really wants to solve immigration. Nobody really wants to solve the real spending problems and the journalists don't ask hard questions. It's just war all the time. War and jabs all the time. MAGA Hat says the ACLJ is fighting the 14th Amendment cases for Trump, just announced today. Please donate over there. From MAGA Hat Stays. That's over on Locals. And of course, you can check that link out on Locals, YouTube link. We got NY says, I give McCarthy credit for his answers to the media on impeachment. Certainly. He was good. He delivered like 10 points, like right off the cuff. It was good. I appreciated his performance. And the media didn't like it, which is why it was good. A Bad Poet says, come on, Honest Joe, release your tax returns. Do we have his tax returns? Does he release them? I'm not familiar with that issue. We'd like to see his bank accounts, that's for sure. Pookie's Ma says anti-evidence. Yes, they're anti-evidence. They don't even like evidence. It's right in front of their faces. They're evidence deniers is what they are. NY says, Rob, I totally agree. They will beat Republicans over the head with the impeachment. They should do public hearings, have a committee with 6 Dems and 7 Repubs, make it primetime, allow the Biden administration to give a defense during the inquiry. That sounds pretty fair, NY. So you want to do like 13, and then you want to pull a Nancy Pelosi, and then when the Democrats nominate 6 people, you just say, well, we don't like any of them, and then fire all of them, and then appoint 2 Democrats that you like, because that's exactly what they did during January 6th. Catherine Rex is here, says, hello, my YouTube family. Welcome, Catherine. Good to see you. We're glad that you joined us. This one is from MAGA Hat Stays, sharing a link saying key evidence. And I wonder, is that the one that we just read? Is that the thing that we just read? No, that's the different link. But yeah, that's also good evidence. Thank you, MAGA Hat, sharing some good links over there. We might have covered that one before. NY says Biden's administration's behavior now will yield much more than any time in the past. Most of the people in his administration have basic intelligence. If they know in any way they are in legal jeopardy, the rats will jump ship in short order. I agree with McCarthy's strategy. Keep your powder dry. Let Biden and his administration impeach themselves. Yeah, there's something to that. You know, if your enemy's making a blunder, just step out of the way. Just get out of the way. Don't let them, you know, don't even get involved. All you got to do is pull out a lawn chair and sit down and watch it happen. So I think that we're kind of in that frame right now. I mean, you know, the economy's, we had a new inflation print today that wasn't looking good. And I think they're in a little bit of panic mode. I feel like there's a little bit of an energy shift. I mean, they really feel like they're scrambling a bit. So good comment. Tony Hay says, one day, January 6th will be a national holiday. Trump will be in the history books as the greatest president ever. And this time will show how the American people took the country back. God bless America. That's an interesting theory, Tony Hay. I do think that there will be a moment of reflection on that at one point. It was a national tragedy, certainly, what they did, what they allowed to happen. And, you know, there was a lot of people, I think, that were okay with it happening, and I'm not alone in that. Stephen Son, former Capitol Hill chief of police, has a lot of the same questions. But, Tony, I think you're right about this. I think that the biggest issue is that we have to expose what's happening before we can actually solve this. And I know it feels like because we're in it, we're in the thick of it, that it's all been exposed already. Like we've all already seen enough. What else do we need to see? But we've got a duty to wake up as many other people as we can to hit critical mass of numbers so that we can do this, take the country back and save America. Rocky says, hey, Rob, I was listening to Karine and starting to feel grumpy, so I needed a happy thought. And then I remembered when they first accused Trump of breaking the law in the Zelensky phone call, and Trump responded by releasing the full transcript to the public the next day. That memory made me feel better. A fun little microcosm of a big difference between us and them. Peace. Yeah, I mean, if Joe Biden is so innocent, they can certainly just give us more information about this, present their defense. But they're not going to do that because he's not innocent. And they impeached Trump over a phone call to Zelensky. And arguably that Zelensky phone call was about the Hunter corruption that they should have been looking at the first place. So they were less interested in the actual corruption and more interested in Trump's phone call about the corruption. That's the Democrats. Rosie says, I was wondering if the Bidens were made aware by the banks that a SAR was filed against them. Found this interesting. Do you think they pooped their pants when they found out? From Rosie Posey. I don't know. I think that there were hundreds of SARs. Yeah, so at some point they must have known. But I think Nancy Mace from Congress said that there were literally hundreds of SARs. And I'm sure they know about them. But if they're not going to do anything about it, maybe they're not too nervous. Pinochet's helicopter tours. What's up, Pinochet? Says impeachment may not happen, but the congressional record preserves for history those guilty of corruption of blood, a stain they can never wash out. That's a great comment, Pinochet. Yeah, and it is, I think, for the history books, right? It is a historical thing. And I think that's what they're a little bit concerned about. Remember, these are very much label people. They really care about their labels. I mean, like they'll fire you if you mislabel things. You know, it's a huge problem for them. They wake up every day. They sometimes they change their labels depending on how they feel. It's like their whole identity. It's a strange thing. So that's why I like to point out that Adam Schiff, that loser, got censured, which has not happened all that time. It's a really historical thing in this country. And just make them remember that he has been censured. Adam Schiff, that weird looking dude, has been censured because he's a liar. So it's been a curious development. And I think that maybe it would also, they would hate that label of impeachment, which is probably why we should do it. We got Alan Harkin. What's up, Alan? Says, I found out that not seeing your vids is like an addict quitting cold turkey. I'm a broken record, but as usual, awesome show explaining complex issues in an understandable way we can all absorb. Thank you, Alan, for a very nice comment. And it sounds like you took a little bit of a hiatus. Hopefully you're doing something fun or traveling or out of politics for a little bit, but we're glad that you're back. And I understand what you mean. I understand what you mean. It's like when you want to, you got to get, there were, well, like a lot of that happened with Tucker. Like when Tucker went away, man, I was like, where's Tucker at? And I kind of had that same feeling. I'm like that, like what he had to say about this issue. And so I feel you, man. It's hard to get out of the routine. But thanks for coming back, my friend. And thanks for the nice dono. And I hope you had a good time away. But we're glad you're back. That's most important. We got Bodie's here. What's up, Bodie? Says, wait, let me, hold on a minute. Okay, yeah. Okay, I can click this one. Her fundraising events have to be fun. Yeah, this was this woman who was live streaming interactions with her husband. She's running for a Democrat position now. And Politico says, hey, so what if a candidate live streamed things with her husband? So what? Who cares? What a story. So we'll see if she wins. We've got Tony. Hey, bringing in 5 new members. Thank you, Tony. Bringing in pan-seared ribeye. Yum. We got Holly P. Mr. Otter Pockets is in the house. We got Jonathan C's in the house, along with Paul P. all coming in courtesy of Tony Hay Munkets. Thank you, Tony Hay, for your very nice invitation. We got Salty Sarge is over on Rumble, says, if the Republicans were smart, which I completely doubt, safe bet, I would use the impeachment inquiry to remove bureaucrats and heads of the DOJ, FBI, and NARA and make this DC snake eat itself from the tail up. So you'd go after, I think you could, quite honestly. I think DOJ, Merrick Garland, he lied to us. Christopher Wray lied to us. And NARA, she's acting. So the NARA woman is new. So has she done anything illegal yet? Probably. You're right. Impeach her too. I think you're right about all of them. Angie Warren is in the house. Thank you, Angie, for being a member for 4 months. We're almost halfway to a baby, almost there. Thank you, Robert. I appreciate all of your work. Thank you, Angie. I appreciate you being here. Thank you for being a member. And thanks for sending in this lovely message on the day. We got Tanya Karras says for the swear jar. Thanks, Tanya. I let it slip. I said the A word today. Oh, man. I feel guilty about that. But I couldn't take it. I was a little fired up. Thank you, Tanya, for covering me. I'll try to do better. I'll wash my mouth out with soap. We've got Marine for Freedom says, has there been any update on Jeffords versus Fulton County? Judge originally ruled that 147,000 ballots could be physically reviewed, but later dismissed for a lack of standing. In May 2023, it was remanded back down from the appellate court, saying that there was, in fact, standing. I do not know on that one, Marine for Freedom. Let's look that up in the after party. Let's see if I can find an update on that. I don't think we were ever following that one here. Were we following that one here? I don't think that we were. Let's see if we can figure out what's up on that one. We got Woods Precision Arms. Thanks, Woods. What's up, Woods? Says, Robert, you sexy SOB. Great show. Thanks, Woods. Thanks for being a member for 1 month. First month's the hardest. If we can make it to month 2, it's usually a better relationship. We got NY Renal says, straight from Rules for Radicals. Says the Democrats play by the rules that help them. They want Republicans to follow standards. They do not. Do not fall into this idea scam. They are in trouble. And like any group caught, will start bailing once more comes out. That point has not been reached yet. Yeah, so you think that they'll all, their so-called unity. Really, the Democratic Party is like this conglomerate of a bunch of different groups. And I've always been of the mindset that it's very hard to lead in that way because you don't have a shared core set of values, really. What is it that you stand for? And when people start standing for different things, the group is going to become fractured and they're going to eat themselves, long story short. And I think that you're right, at some point that is going to happen. I think that's why it always happens, right? Why communism fails in general is because people, can be corrupted and people are fallible. And when you try to have people in positions, they exploit them. And so they'll all start attacking each other at some point. And I think we're starting to see some of that. Like the TERF, right? The trans exclusionary radical feminists versus the trans and like all of they're all, the letters, there's a hierarchy, and they're all jockeying for who's the highest letter in the hierarchy. Yeah, anyways, that's from the good doctor. We got Dustin says, Rob, why slow mode? Why take away our freedom of speech? Free speech? Well, slow mode, I think, is something to help the mods. I mean, the technical reason for that is so that they can read through the stuff. And it's also to help us connect with patience, Dustin. It's patience. That's what it's for. And actually, it's only slow. It's only 20-second slow mode timeout. The other format is 60 seconds. So we actually taper that back down. But I think it helps. I think it's best for the mods. That's the actual answer, the non-jokey answer. We got Salty says, Rob, swear jar fund. 2024 is going to be one of those years. Rough waters ahead. Let them smash their boats on the rocks of truth and perseverance of those who will not relent. Party on, Garth. Party on, Wayne. From Salty Sarge over on the Rumbles. We got Posh Hawk on YouTube. What's up, Posh? Welcome. Says, your courtroom antics are brilliant and this gallery is a hoot. Thanks for sharing your talents. From Posh Hawk over on Locals. And Posh Hawk is a new member. Welcome aboard. And the gallery is a hoot. Locals is a hoot. I mean, shout out to Locals. You guys are a hoot. We've got this one from Spuds on Locals. Says, Bobby Ann Cox did a great job today submitting her brief before the New York State Supreme Court Division of Appeals regarding the unconstitutional quarantine regulation. CV posted it on Telegram. Is this a new one or is this an old one? This is interesting. Yeah, that's interesting. Like, is this a new thing they're trying to cram down everyone's gullets, or is this old? Thanks, Buds. We've got this from Chutlu Shiite. Chutlu Shiite says, get your membership perks. Things are getting spicy. No doubt about that. 19 months, man. Chilutlu Shiite. And I think this is Zulu. Is this not Zulu? And I think it's Zulu, except for 19 months, man. Thanks, Zulu, for being a member for 19 months. It's been a long 19 months, and we're just getting started, baby. It's actually been a short 19 months, man. Time flies. Can you believe it's September already? It's 2023, man. September. All right, thanks, Zulu, for being a member for 19 months. We've got Lotus Blossom is here with no question, just sending in a nice dono. Thank you, Lotus Blossom, for doing that. Very much appreciated. We've got Mark Mills. Mark, thank you for being a member and for sending in a nice dono as well. Very generous of you. I appreciate your support here today. Thanks for sticking around. Rocky says, here's a PSA. The Paxton impeachment trial is great stuff and a great way to spend the downtime at the office between the morning and afternoon shows at Watching the Watchers. That is all. Peace. Thanks, Rocky. Yeah, I've been hearing a lot of that. You know, if we didn't have 4 Trump indictments and a Biden impeachment and Hunter Biden plea deals and all of the other things we cover, that sounds like a good one. And I've heard it's been quite good. I haven't watched it, but I've heard it's been quite good. So definitely check that out. Is it done? I think it actually might be done, right? Yeah. Spud says, Hochul appealed the lower court's decision. Hochul appealed the lower court's decision. Thanks, Spud. So I'm wondering if that's new or old. Is that new COVID stuff or old COVID stuff that went up on appeal and now it's being dealt with? Probably old. All right, let's see what's going on over on the X. Then we're going to wrap it up and go over to watchingthewatchers.locals.com for our members only after party. But let's say hello to our friends on X. We've got some comments and we've got some people watching. 5 people? Oh my goodness. On Twitter, it's going to be just total madness. Let's see what we've got here. We've got a couple comments. Roberto Ramirez says, thank you for your work. Thank you, Roberto Ramirez. Thanks for being here and saying thanks on that one. We've got Bernice Wallace says, thank you for the evidence breakdown, Rob. It is now evident more than ever that Democrats are directly full of it. From Bernice Wallace. We've also got this one. This was from a background check from JB. Says, here's a background check doc where Hunter claims he was paying $49,000 a month rent for the Joe Biden-owned Rehoboth home in Delaware. Oh, that's right. We read through this one, but you're right about that. This was a background screening request. He said, Robert Hunter Biden, my current address is Beverly Hill Road. It is in Wilmington, Delaware. Current residence, I own it. Current residence, I own it. The company name, Owasco PC, phone number, all the things. Have you ever been evicted? No. Have you ever been convicted of a felony? No. Please include a copy of your driver's license, Robert Hunter Biden, on a background check. So he owns the residence. And the monthly rent, there it is, $49,910 a month. He moved out February 2018, so he's got to get a new place somewhere. So he said he owned the residence and was paying $50,000 a month for the Rehoboth Beach in Barley Hill Road. Interesting. Good comment there from JB in the house. Thanks for sharing that one. Bernice says, one more thing. Did you happen to watch the interview of Lieutenant Tariq Johnson with Viva? No, I haven't seen it. It was eye-opening on a whole nother perspective and gives more hope to J6ers. God bless our political prisoners and their families. Yeah, and shout out to Viva and shout out to Tariq Johnson. Another great follow over there. All right, we've got Phil Reno says, how long before they release another Trump indictment to change the news cycle? Says, I saw Mexico alien mummies and that NASA is going to realize more UFOs in the coming days. Hey, look over there. LR Customs says September is the start of outdoor grocery shopping. There is not a membership option on X yet. James Pepper says, what's up, Raven Madness is here. We've got James Pepper says, if Obama can determine what the White House has access to in the archives, then why not Trump? Well, I think Obama could do it while he was a president, and Trump could have done it while he was the president, but not now. Fred says, a video of Joe receiving $100,000 cash might come up, and Goldman would say, that doesn't mean anything. How do we even know that's really Joe Biden? James Pepper, C. Reed's in the house, and Danny McWilliams says, have you noticed that you don't see kids around Joe Biden anymore? There was the one when he was traveling overseas. He was meeting with Eric Garcetti's daughter, and he was like holding on to her for way too long. Eric Garcetti's daughter and Joe Biden. He was just over there when he was traveling overseas to Asia. So, my friends, that is it for us. Shout out to our friends on X. Thank you to our Rumble friends. Thank you to our Locals fam. Thank you to YouTube friends. We are now going to wrap it up on the day and go over to Locals and Telegram for our members only after party. And so YouTube members, grab the Telegram link in the community tab section on YouTube. Locals friends, we'll see you in a quick minute. Don't forget to get your Field of Greens, my friends, at fieldofgreens.com. You can use code Robert to save 15% off when you check out. We love our mods and our meme smiths. Big shout outs to our friend Vienticus Prime, K-Bean. We got Just Cause, Playing Hooky, Ronnie Cole, Zulu's in the house, Beyond Geo, Zach Nichols, John Allen, Janek, Dog Digger, Donut Mind Me, and John McGarvey all in the house, modding down the fort for us. Our meme smiths, Geegum Geegum, Sleepy Dog Lee, Nathan, N810 all in the house. Keeping things nice and orderly and tidy for us. Thank you everybody for your help. But my friends, that is it for us on the day. We're going over to our after party. We'd love to see you there. But if not, we are motoring through this week. Tomorrow, we'll be back here again to get into it. And we hope to see you right back here so that together with your help, we can shine that big, beautiful spotlight of accountability and transparency down upon our system with the hope of finding justice. Make it a beautiful night, my friends. Sleep very well. I'll see you right back here tomorrow. Bye-bye.